why. Joey asked that first. But we're whew, almost got it. We're trying to collect and analyze information so some ultimate purpose can come out of this process, right? Some knowledge will hit us in the face and we'll go, wow, that's cool. That's good information to know. So this is what research is. It's systematic. Even if you do qualitative. You listening to Brene Brown yesterday? It was she's very systematic with how she organizes information and thinks about things, and she takes her time to think and look for themes and so forth. So even if it's qualitative, doesn't mean it's not systematic. Very much is systematic. Quantitative very much is systematic. And we're doing all sorts of things. We're going to identify the problem, review the information, collect the data. Of course, you're not doing this in this class. Collecting the data, analyzing the data, you're not doing that, you're not drawing a conclusion. So all we're worried about in this class is kind of formulating a problem, kind of doing just a basic literature review, just a little, to get an introduction, background to the problem. And that's kind of what we're doing. So that's as far as we'll go. Okay. I have clips. Okay, let me see if I can find this video. Crows are smart. You guys know that, right? It's a bird.
So I'm scared of bird.
You know, and sometimes there's that magnolia bird farm, isn't that out? Have you guys been to that? This one. That one. Jerry Lassen went this way. I know nothing about east, west, south, north. I'm lucky to make it to campus every day, but yeah. But there's a magnolia bird farm, and the birds there they're big birds. They're smart. They're very affectionate. You'd be surprised how, one bird one time I started petting it on the head. You know what it did? It kind of leaned into it, do it harder, and then it kind of picked up its arm, wanted me to pet it underneath its arm.
But they're used to humans.
Yeah, well, yeah, they are. But that just shows you how affectionate they could be, under the certain circumstances, right? So they are smart.
Crows be the they're about to eat me alive. Especially on campus.
Okay, we're going to do a systematic desensitization with birds.
We'll start with our Rottweiler.
Okay, all right. Now, we talked about this before. We talked about non-directional, right? So basically, there's no relationship between this and this, right? No relationship. When you have a non-directional research hypothesis, there is a relationship between this and this, right? When it's directional, you're actually saying there's some sort of direction, right? So if you're looking at height of intelligence, my null is the opposite of what I'm thinking. So I'm saying a shorter individual is not significantly more intelligent than a taller person. But this is what I believe. See? A shorter individual is significantly more intelligent than a taller person, which you guys proved yesterday. Right?
Going back a slide, you don't have to, but identifying the problem, was there a problem?
Well, my problem was, did I know if there was a difference was there a relationship between height and intelligence? For me, I'm thinking there is. Now, in reality, this is not really a problem. Not really a problem. But people have done research on this. People have actually done research on this. And you'll find mixed results, by the way. Some will say taller, some will say shorter. All right. So
It depends on how tall the researcher is.
there might have been some bias in there somewhere. I cannot imagine how those things would creep into research. But But in order to do this, in order to make it directional, you've got to find something in the literature that can back you up. That you can kind of take this leap of faith and say there's a direction. You got to find enough research to kind of back you up. Right? So here, you just know there's probably a relationship, but you don't know exactly how it will play itself out. And of course, there's me younger, very younger, and I'm saying, yep, shorter, smarter, and Jerry's going, you just disproved your own hypothesis. And so we did this the other day in terms of I got your height and GPA and what was the other thing? Oh, the picture, alphabetical order test, my intelligence test, which was a stupid test, by the way, right? Because it didn't do things right. The one thing it did right, and you guys wouldn't have known this, but when I put all the pictures in, I put them in the same order for every person. So when you took it out of the package, everybody got the same order. So I tried to standardize it in some way. That's the one right thing I did with it. But it's a bad test. Okay, so you got independent variables. Independent variables are the variables that you either manipulate or you put them into categories. For example, if I manipulate, I might say how much water you drink dictates how well you do on a quiz, right? So I give you 5 glasses of water, you guys, and I give you guys 8 glasses of water, and you guys 10 glasses of water. And you're so full, you go to the bathroom and you don't have enough time to do your quiz. So anyway, so you manipulate. You can either manipulate or just categories. For example, like when I did my dissertation, my independent variable was your confidence in biofeedback. So I didn't make you more confident, right? I didn't manipulate the variable. I just put you in categories. I gave you a questionnaire to fill out, and that puts you in the category of low, moderate, or high level of confidence. Does that make sense? So we either have these categories or we manipulate things. I give you white chocolate, dark chocolate, white, dark, white, and see how you do on a quiz. I manipulate, right? Then the dependent variables kind of, again, they depend on this, right? So my treatment and biofeedback depended upon my confidence level. How you do on the quiz depends on how much water you drink. How you do on a quiz depends on how much chocolate you eat. On and on the list goes up, right? Or how much exercise you do before you take the quiz. All right. So in your paper, you'll talk about assumptions, limitations, and delimitations. Assumptions are basically what you assume to be true. Like if in your study you decide to use a questionnaire or a test or something, you assume that people are going to fill that baby out honestly. They're going to be genuine when they answer this question. People will be honest. You also assume, like if you're giving an IQ test, it's a valid test. It's a good test, and we can accurately measure intelligence. So this is a good test on intelligence. It's valid. It's reliable. You're going to be honest when you fill it out. Those are some assumptions that you might normally make. Limitations are things you can't control. How the study fell short, basically. And so you might have maybe tested 120 people in your study, and maybe about 10% of the sample were having a bad day when they came in and did your study. That's probably going to hurt you. That's something you can't control. You can't control if they had a good or bad day. You can't control whether they had a fight with their spouse or not. You can't do any of that.
But you use the data.
But you still use the data, still recognizing that there are some limitations. Yeah. And so you just try to think of what are some of the possible limitations that could have occurred in this particular study. And it could be that if you're testing any sample of human beings, that some people are having a bad day, or they might not give their best performance. Those would be typical assumptions that you can make, typical limitations.
You know how you kind of deceive so that people don't try to help you? And
Yeah, or
what if you can't figure out one?
disprove.
Could that be a limitation where you couldn't figure out a way to trick what you're trying to get from people?
In a sense, if you can't control something, yes, it's a limitation.
No.
Yeah, if you can't control it, yeah. So maybe you couldn't be, you couldn't think of the perfect deception. Maybe the deception you used had some holes or cracks in it or loopholes, So you recognize that after you did the study. You recognize, oh, dummy. They probably, the way I worded this, they probably saw through it. So you state that as a limitation. Let's say you did a sample of 120 people, all right? On the second day of assessing the sample, there was a fire drill. It happened right during when you were collecting data, okay? And it happened with, you couldn't test all 120 people at once, right? But this particular group of 30 folks had a fire drill during their assessment process. That's something you can't control. That's something you have to mention. It's a limitation. There might have been some contamination. Does that make sense? Some contamination of the results because a segment of the population being assessed had a fire drill in this video. Probably in that situation, that whole group would be thrown out. You go out and find the 30 people to replace them with, type of thing. And so, anyway, noise, lighting, temperatures, things, anything that you recognize afterwards was probably a limitation, a shortcoming with the study. You would list in the research. And delimitations, you're in the driver's seat, D, driver's seat. These are things choices that you're making. So maybe I choose a sample of 200 people. I am choosing that. I'm not going to do 500, I'm going to do 200. Or maybe I'm just going to do 120. I'm in the driver's seat and I'm choosing, okay? Choices you're making. Maybe you decide, okay, if there's a test to be done with this sample, I am choosing to give it at the beginning of the day, not waiting to the end of it. And maybe the test is going to be time limited. And so these are things that you decided to control for whatever reason, probably to somehow standardize the outcome, or try to standardize the outcome. You give a test, make sure every person is in every other seat type of thing.
Okay, I can see you in your position in your career being able to assemble a group of people. You said at the hospital you didn't get all the numbers you wanted, you didn't get the 120.
No.
But how would a grad student go about, okay,
That's a good question.
I need 120, I need 200 people
Yeah.
sign up here, or how do people actually go about doing that at our level?
That's a good question. If you can give a $20 bill to every person who volunteers to come in your study, I bet you get enough people in your sample. If you gave them $50 or $100, I bet you could get a sample, right? Now, the other thing is, having said that, make it worth their while. You're more likely to get a sample. If you work in a place where you just have access to a database, the data's already been collected. It's just waiting for somebody to ask some questions. That's another brilliant way. I mean, the data's already there. You don't have to go out and collect it. perfect way. It saves you time, energy, if you can do that. If you work at a place where you have control, like where I was, that helps. But if you don't work in a school setting, for example, and you want to collect a sample of elementary students, lots of luck on that one. I'm sorry, but you got politics, you gotta get permission, parents' permission. I mean, talk about the worst sample to pick. Elementary, going to the school itself, trying to get permission to do a study on their kids. That's probably, but that's probably the most interesting research that we can do, But maybe you might be able to get around that by just going after a certain age range of young people and advertising maybe in a newspaper or in a hospital setting. You might have them post some advertisements. You're conducting a study. If anybody's interested, there is a little stipend, to participate in the research. You'd be willing to, give, so much money. You're going to up the odds that you're going to get some volunteers that way. That makes your sample less random, though. That's the downside. Because we like to have random samples. So we want to go into school and just, get a list of the elementary students in alphabetical order, and then we go to a randomized chart, and we pick 50 kids, and if we pick 50 as the number in the sample that we want, the randomized chart will tell us which numbers we'll pick. We'll pick kid number 1, number 7, 8, 12, 13, it'll tell us. You can go online and you can get a randomized, you type in the number of people that you want to do. All right, so like when I was doing my dissertations, I wanted to do 120 dissertations. Okay, so I had the universities in alphabetical order, that sort of thing, AP approved, whatever, and it told me which ones I should pick. So you can do it that way if you want. Usually, the best samples to go for traditionally have been college students, because it's easy to get in. They're adults. You don't have to get parent permission. And here, through the psychology department, if you ask to, they have a class they actually have to take where they have to do so much research or write a paper. And most of them are going to do the research, participate in a research study versus do a paper, hands down. I mean, if you had the choice, wouldn't you? Right? Rather do participate in research. It's only going to take 20 minutes or an hour versus write a paper, which is going to take you a whole weekend to do or whatever, or more than that. So here, it's kind of built into the system. The psych students have to participate in so much research. So if you get your research, listed as a possible, study that they could participate in, they could choose to participate. And you don't have to pay them because they have to participate in so much research. But the problem now is that since college students traditionally has been a target population for researchers, and colleges and universities get inundated with request after request after request after request for research, now universities are becoming more reluctant to let you go in and do research on your students. Because you come in and you take up some valuable class time. Teachers don't want to give you the class time. They're pressed enough to go over the material they need to go over with you guys. So it's getting harder and harder to get into the college samples. So again, that leaves you advertising, via certain methods, either through hospitals or schools. If you want to participate in research, call me. And you sweeten the pot with a little money or a gift of some sort. And
if you want to make it cheap, you can make a free lunch and a raffle.
Yeah, you could be very creative like that. Jerry has done he's gotten samples with
Krispy Kreme.
Krispy Kreme donuts.
Oh, I would definitely show up.
You know, he just stand on college campus, and he had donuts, and he had a survey. Anybody wanted to do a survey, they would just, they'd get a donut. You'd be surprised what college students will do for a donut, especially those Krispy Kreme donuts. Those are
Straight from the
pretty
Krispy Kreme store, not the
Yeah.
stuff from the grocery store, but
Yeah,
right from
they
the
see the
store.
box, and they see a whole bunch of boxes. They're kind of moving towards the boxes. What's
Yeah.
going on here, man?
I went through 10, so it would have been 120. I went through 10 boxes in 3 hours.
And some people even filled out the survey and didn't even take a donut.
Yeah.
And, they just, he's doing some research. That's okay.
Keep the donut.
Thanks anyway. I'll do it.
Ooh,
They were dieting
that could have been the deception.
or allergic.
Where the survey is nothing, who is gonna take the donut?
Donuts!
Altruism.
Yes, that's right.
Keep your donut.
Yeah,
I'll do it for nothing.
Yeah. Exactly.
Make sure when people walk in, we tell them, I'm gonna take a picture on the one, and we take a picture of their height. Oh no, but they couldn't manipulate their height. They just stand tall.
We could put it to categories, 5 feet and below. 5 feet. Anyway, okay. So, yeah. And then we have things like control variables, like if you want to minimize, eliminate the effect of gender, you can do that statistically with your analysis. If you want to eliminate the effect of eye color, that sounds stupid, but I put one stupid thing up there to keep your attention. But actually, there's been, interestingly, I remember reading about some research that associated the color of your eyes with Parkinson's disease. That if you have green eyes, you're more at risk. So maybe that's another study. Eye color and schizophrenia, eye color and depression. I don't know. It's interesting what people will study and find out. Who would have thought there's a relationship between Parkinson's disease and the color of your eyes? Who would have thought that the way your hair turns, there might be an association to homosexuality? All right. Moderated variables, on the other hand, you're not trying to control their effects out of the study. You're just trying to see how they affect the study. They're like another variable. You want to see what kind of impact it has on the final outcome. Like you might do that with gender as well. You might want to see what effect gender has, on the end results of the study. So in my dissertation, I didn't do this. I just factored it out. But if I wanted to see if gender and biofeedback confidence, if there were differences at play between the two, I could have done that statistically. Maybe I would have found out that if you're female and you have a moderate confidence level in biofeedback outcomes, you're going to do better than a male who has moderate. But not better than a male who has significant confidence. Could have done that. But I didn't. So it's just another variable, third variable, or fourth, or fifth, or sixth. It has an impact on the outcome. I just put that picture there because I thought the animal was cute.
The baby fox?
Yeah, what is that called?
Red panda.
What?
Red panda.
That's right, a red panda. It looks like a fox.
It's a little baby?
It's a little baby, and it kind of looks like a Pomeranian. Oh, look
Yeah,
at
it does.
And I'm telling you, chocolate, I get this smell. It's just got this like, I don't know.
We're bringing bear next week.
Oh, lizards.
No. Yeah, we've already done this. We've done it with GPA, so we don't have to do this. But you could actually do if you wanted to measure intelligence, we use GPA. We use my silly test, with pictures. But you could pick another measure to measure intelligence, like the Lester scale, or the Shipley, the SILS. Is it on here? I don't have it on here. The Shipley Institute of Living Scale, which I used a lot in the military. It's another measure of intelligence. The nice thing about the Shipley is it only takes 20 minutes to take. So it's a quick, down and dirty, easy measure, but it goes all the way back to being normed what the weights are. It hasn't been updated, so you can't use it today anyway. The Wessler, on the other hand, the Wessler Scales of Intelligence, will take you an hour and a half on average to get an hour to hour and a half, maybe more. Not very time cost effective. So you can think of other ways to measure intelligence, right?
Sure.
Give me some ideas.
Rubik's Cube test.
Oh, you've seen some people take them a few seconds.
I had a
to do
friend
that.
who did that in undergraduate. He was
It's amazing.
amazing.
Has everyone
Couple.
done the Rubik's? Everybody's done it?
I've done it. I've never
Completed it.
completed it.
Those things are
They're hard.
I mean, that's pretty.
Actually, I
Challenging.
got to a point where there was like a strategy or something, or I forgot it now. There's a strategy.
There is a strategy.
There's got to be a strategy because some people have it down pat. So I
There's a
don't
sequence.
have the patience. I don't have the patience.
There's a sequence.
You have to like learn it.
Yeah, I don't. It's sort of like chess, isn't it? Probably. You have to kind of learn.
Oh yeah.
process.
There's a long. It's called an algorithm.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there are different ways, how do you define intelligence? That's one thing. And then, is intelligence just cognitive, or you can look at social intelligence, you can look at emotional intelligence, you can look at height and emotional intelligence, height and social intelligence, and we know again, shorter, smarter, right? Either, no matter what domain you're looking at, shorter.
Okay, I have a question. Like for IQ tests, like intelligence tests as well as personality tests, are they like accurate? Because sometimes you get the answer like that is so mad at me.
Yeah, some tests are valid and reliable, and some tests are nauseatingly bad.
Myers-Briggs in particular.
Yeah.
Psychometrically is a train wreck.
Not good. But other tests are very, very, very good. You got to look at the validity and reliability sections. When it's sort of like the praxis. I thought I heard you telling somebody the other day about the praxis.
Oh yeah, from ETS.
Yeah.
Yes,
They won't even give you permission to look at the validity
and reliability data.
if you want to do research on the praxis.
Now you can't do research on the praxis.
You tried to do some research and you got through there. And really, ethically, that's against the rules. You're not supposed to hide that data. Hello. That's a good sign that maybe it's
Something's amiss. I think the way that played out was that ETS received a congressional subpoena, and they, I think it was a construct validity as far as they took it.
Yeah.
So they didn't actually have a sample.
Yeah.
You know.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
And again, some tests are better than others. The MMPI is the most recent version. But definitely, from my experience, some people know the Rorschach. The ink blot test. Sorry.
How is what do you read off of that?
You can read off some psychopathology,
Some psychopathology.
coping skills, things like that. But it's there to give, it's a bear to score, it's a bear to interpret, and to be honest, the validity of it.
Do you ask questions about their answers?
You can follow with some queries on some of the answers. Okay, so anyway, there's a sense. Shipley Institute is. So you can, we can look at intelligence in all sorts of different ways. It's nice, and if you decided you wanted to do heightened intelligence, we know it's been done, but maybe they haven't used this particular intelligence test. And you look at the literature and you look at the tests that they've used, and you say, this by far, this test that I want to use is miles above the tests that have been used in the past. So I am going to do yet another study on height and intelligence, and I'm going to use a shorter, stronger text. You can see what happens. So, yeah, you're kind of reinventing the wheel, but you're throwing something different into the process. Does that make sense? So, people say, does it have to be absolutely perfectly, never been done? It can be done, but you can make it different in some way. So yeah. This is height and intelligence. What does it say? If you look at the scattergram.
No.
Directly.
Here's GPA, and here's height. It's inverse, right?
It's an inverse.
So as your height goes up, your GPA goes down. Again, that's my theory. Very nice. So this would be like an inverse relationship minus 0.8. If you did calculations, if you actually did it via the formula, you get minus 0.8. And N is your population, and N out of 10 people. You've already answered this. Inverse relationship. Shorter I am, higher the GPA. Okay. Okay. I've already drilled that one to death, so I won't do it anymore. So, okay. Here's one though. That actual study: intelligence and religiosity. What does this tell you? Can you see this? It said religion very important in IQ. What does this tell you?
It's
Inverse again. So the more important your religion is, what's happening with intelligence? That's what that's saying. And the U.S. is right here. Yeah, so it's like country, yeah. Now, that may be very well true. The higher the importance of your religion, the more stupid you are. They could be true.
I think it's interesting if it's based off of country. I think that's interesting because you would think that third world countries probably have a higher
moderating variable, right? Other things go.
Because
Did they factor those things out, or did they leave them in it? The other question I have is, what measure did they use?
And I always get confused about what is your gold standard of intelligence,
What measure did, how did they define it, and what measure? They had to define it one way, and they had to use one measure.
Because
What could you use for how many countries?
I certainly know how to weave a motorcycle through some turns pretty good, but I am not a medicine man who's a holistic and naturopathic healer. So the guy who's in the bush, he's got something on me.
Yeah.
No doubt.
No, I think we all have strengths and weaknesses. I can play softball pretty good, and I haven't played tennis for a while, but we're getting back into tennis. I used to beat him all the time. This last time we played, first time in a few years, he beat me. So now the game is on. Now I gotta beat him. So the game is back on.
I have the power of it. She can pick me to death
Yeah,
with her
so
shots.
you've got the height, the power,
But she can put the ball wherever she wants to.
And I had a bad day, and what happened is I hurt myself. See, this is what happened. Didn't I tell you I hurt myself, right? I hurt myself. He knows it's true. I hurt myself. And then I got a bad shoulder. And I know I didn't have surgery on this shoulder. I just know I did.
So you've got better offense and you've got better defense now? Or I don't know.
Anyway, but the thing about this, it could be true, but my question would be, what measure did they use among these 50 countries or whatever, that all the countries would equally perform, the same on, if they're speaking different languages, and they have different norms and so forth, how do you find one intelligence test that is culture-free type of thing?
I even have doubts when we see things in the news that Germany is ahead of the United States and math or whatever.
Then you wonder what measure are they using.
What are they using as a measure?
Yeah.
I mean, did they take the same test?
And it may be absolutely true.
It may be true.
But we need more information.
Yeah, exactly.
Just put them in a life and death situation and see if they try to MacGyver it out or if they get on their knees. If they get on their knees, religion is a high point. If they try to MacGyver it, then they don't believe in religion.
MacGyver it out.
Yeah,
That's
I
me.
like that.
I'm gonna write
I've never
that
heard
down.
The
that.
bull just keeps flying out of here.
Yeah.
My wife laughs every day.
Yeah, this is interesting. Look at this, torture and religiosity. Now this is a little more, they were just basically asked,
MacGyver it out.
the use of torture against suspected terrorists, it can often be justified. That's basically the question. They could choose, can sometimes be justified, can rarely be justified, can never be justified, don't know or refuse to answer. Now that's pretty basic. That, if you're asking a sample of this question, and look what happened in terms of faith systems. It's really the people who believed less in torture were not affiliated with the religion. The evangelical Protestants are more in line with it. So it's interesting. Alright, a couple cartoons. Mention waterboarding in Congress goes nuts. And here's Bush. That's Cheney, right? Maybe we should rename it something like something fun, like bobbing for information. That's Biden. Run for your lives. And what's his name? I forgot his name. Anyways, he means jogging's good for you.
Run for your life.
Bottom line is, stats can be made to say anything, right? You have to be true to the data and try to explain it as genuinely and as honestly and as true to the data as you can. Yeah, you guys probably all know how to get into the database, right?
It's so funny. I just went to the library today to ask them
How to do that? Okay. Well, I wanted to show you in case you didn't. I'm sure this is just like old information. But what I do when I'm on campus is I www.lasera.edu, and then I just add the word library to it, and that takes me right to. It's the quickest way to get there. And then you just go down the page, and then you find off-campus access. Click that. Right, and then now it asks for your email, password, username, and password. So you put that in there, and then you put your in there, and now you're where you need to be. Okay, so if you want articles on education, this is kind of where you want to go. Although when I want education, I'm more likely to go over here to EBSCO. Or ProQuest Research Library, one of those two. And when it says FT, it means they have full text articles available. I spend a lot of time though in psychology, usually ProQuest or PsycInfo. So if I went to ProQuest Social Sciences, I wanted chocolate. And intelligence.
No, not intelligence.
Oh yeah, intelligence. Here we go. Let's see if anything happens. Woo!
Yes.
Look at it. 2,039 results. Now some of these won't have. See, this one here only has basically an abstract, but this one has a full text available, and that can be just rich of information that you need for your research.
So what do you do if you can only get the abstract though? Can you not use it or?
No, to be honest, if you get enough meat from the abstract,
Okay.
that's important, just go ahead and use it.
Okay.
You know? I mean, the abstract is basically summarizing the article. If you can get what you want out of, you don't need the specifics, you can go with the generalities.
Where's the
Cited?
DOI? Where's the DOI?
Oh, okay, let's see if we can find a DOI on this first one. Okay, so it is,
Yeah, to the right.
okay, it doesn't look like it's listed on this.
The citing is
Citation abstract, sometimes you might find it under there, but it does not look like, now if you go down here, sometimes you'll see it, DOI, here, right here, DOI, right there, right there. Sometimes, not all the time,
rare.
sometimes. And then when you list it as a reference, it's small letters, DOI, colon, and then the address, no period. Okay, so now, so this is a source that you can use.
How old can the articles be?
It'll be nice if you guys can keep it within the last 5 years, that would be nice. But if you find something very, very relevant, it's older. But it's nice to get more recent if you can do that. Now, one thing, you probably need to do is definitely hit peer review. It's nice if you can get full text, but sometimes you'll miss some good abstracts if you hit full text. Because it won't show you the things the abstracts that don't have the full text attached to it. If you click full text, you won't get those abstracts. So you miss some information. So I typically just do peer review. Okay. So I'm trying to see if there's a date thing here. Oh, date range, here you go. This is how you can, if you want to, limit it, after this date. So you just, maybe pick 2008. Peer reviewed, and you're wanting to look at chocolate, intelligence. There you go. Okay, and now they return it. Now it should have peer reviewed. So it went from 2000, right, over 2000 to 97 results. So these now are peer reviewed, and since what 2008, right?
What is peer reviewed again? I missed it.
That's a good question. Peer reviewed means that some experts in the field have looked the article over and say, hey, this is reasonable stuff.
Okay.
If it's not peer reviewed, maybe you just pull it off the internet. It could have been written by a quack.
So it's almost like expert review.
Yes, it's an expert review. So you have confidence that it's going to be good information. It may not be perfect, but it has better information than something just pulled off the internet. Now another thing you can do, you can go to Google Scholar. I'm just going to type it in the Google search name, Google Scholar. Just hit return, and then it'll take you to Google Scholar. You just select it. I've been there, so that's why it's purple. And then you go to chocolate and intelligence. And then you will get some hits. Yeah.
That's a lot.
And if you want to, just since, let's say, 2011, you want to really limit it, it's still a lot more than what we found on the database.
But it's not peer reviewed.
You don't know if it's peer reviewed or not. So you have to, look at the journal. If it's a journal, it's probably going to be more likely to be peer reviewed. That sort of thing. So let's see if I see anything interesting. This doesn't seem to be chocolate. Oh, this is keying. See, what's happening is just keying on the word intelligence in some of these. The more on intelligence of children. So that doesn't necessarily mean that it has chocolate being talked about in that particular article. So sometimes what you'll do is you kind of put it in quotes. And then sometimes you won't find anything. It's too narrow there. So you kind of have to go, through each one and kind of see, is it something that's going to actually be important to me? Okay, so I don't really see anything that really is jumping out at me. Do you guys see anything? Here. It's intelligence. So I don't, I'm not seeing.
Cognition.
Maybe we were just talking about intelligence, maybe it's talking about chocolate, I think this is both. Okay.
Try putting quotations to see if you get a hit.
I did. I
It's
didn't
Oh, you
get
did.
anything.
Oh, okay.
So how about if I put eating chocolate and impact on intelligence? I'm just guessing. Oh, it's just giving me some of the same hits. Ooh, that sounds interesting. Chocolate patents, racing your bliss, and chocolate. Ooh, truffles, those are the best. Oh, Lindt chocolate is, Lindt, L-I-N-D-T.
Oh,
You
yeah.
gotta try Lindt.
Oh, yeah.
Lisa knows it.
Those long
You
ones.
gotta try it. Oh, you gotta try it. I'll bring it. Do the dry pieces. Melts in the mouth. Okay.
85%.
Woo!
My mouth is watering.
So Eric, you turn down a bag of chocolates with your paper. I think that's what it is.
Oh, that's a good one.
You made me a happy person when you corrected. Oh, yeah, no.
You
No
like
rights.
85%?
I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah.
Her being happy corrected, like, yes. 25 points.
I can't do that. I'll be like, like Forrest Gump, give her a half of a box of chocolate. So I will have eaten some.
Well, but here's an interesting one. Do chocolate lovers have sweeter babies? The surprising signs of pregnancy. It makes it a little interesting. Okay. So, I don't know. This is sometimes a quicker way to find things in the databases, but sometimes it's slow. So, at least I did it in two different options. We'll get back to that in a second, but let me just finish off with this. You choose whatever search engine you want to use for the databases and you do some word searches. Half the battle is picking the right set of words, Because is chocolate and intelligence going to give me what I'm looking for, or is chocolate and cognitive performance and that'll be better words to attack if I want to see a relation. Or chocolate and memory, maybe I'll find something in that, or something else. Chocolate and empathy. I could go all over the chocolate and altruism.
Yeah.
Chocolate and depression. Chocolate and patience. I'm impatient when I'm wanting chocolate. I'm much more patient after I get chocolate. So chocolate and hormones. What's that? Chocolate and hormones. And hormones, that's right. And we know chocolate has an impact on serotonin and dopamine.
By the time I'm done, I'm gonna have a bad chocolate.
Anyway.
I'm gonna do my own experiment over the weekend.
Watch out. Okay.
So I don't think it'll be a controlled
She'll
experiment.
like animals when she gets, chocolate and producing fear of an animal. Yes. Okay. All right. We're
I'm like, that's a pretty good one. I think you should do it.
Okay.
Tell me how it is.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If we're supposed to be basing this on something that is new or a new idea, how are we then going to find articles with research on it?
Sometimes you just have to take it from side evidence. Like I mentioned yesterday, that's circumstantial evidence. So you build a case from other pieces of evidence.
So it's like you're comparing.
Yeah. So let's say I want to find a relationship between chocolate and intelligence. I think there is a relationship. take that back the words, I want to find a relationship. Take that back. I think there's a relationship. Because actually, if I want to find a relationship between chocolate and intelligence, that says I'm a little biased, right? Well, I kind of am, but listen, I want to find a relationship. So I find some articles that show there's a relationship between eating certain foods and intelligence. And then maybe I find that some of these certain foods will up the tryptophan, which is a precursor to serotonin, all right? And maybe chocolate falls in that category. It doesn't, but let's say it does. Now, so I'm building the case to now jump off the cliff and say, I'm gonna test the relationship between chocolate and intelligence. Does that make sense?
But in your hypothesis, do you usually say I think, or do you say?
No, you say you say the no. I'm not going to find a relationship, and then you say I'm going to find. There will be a significant relationship between chocolate. Just like on the first or second page of the handout, the directional versus amount. Let's go back to that. That's the format that you want to use. All you have to do is change the heightened intelligence part. Right. If you want to make this class simple, just pick two variables, change the 2 words to 2 relationships. One independent variable, one dependent variable type of thing.
Which one?
The one I sent you. The one I just sent you. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. The one where we had this. Where'd it go? Here. This slide. Right. There is not a significant relationship between height and intelligence. And the experimental is there is.
Where in the paper do you put the
No.
Yeah, the
Oh, you don't even have to put the no, just the experimental in the paper. And the example of the paper I gave to you guys, you can follow that as a template. Go for it. Oop, I don't have to go through that all again. Okay, so here's another thing that if you're looking, for when I did my dissertation study, remember I said I created a biofeedback intervention confidence scale. I created one. But why go out and create one if one already exists, right? Mm-hmm. So here's what you can do. And go back online.
Is it a better wheel thing?
Yeah. There's probably a wheel out there that already exists. So here's an easy way to do it. Just type in Burroughs. Burroughs. B-U-R-O-S. Hit return. And that will pop Burroughs Center for Testing. So I go to Burroughs. And they changed the website. That's okay. They can't do that. That's bad. Okay. Now I gotta figure it out. Test reviews online. Okay. This is where I would go. Test reviews online. Okay. And it's good because I hit the yellow. Yellow is what I remember of the old website. It's a yellow thing. Okay. So now I want to see if there's a test out there for empathy. What?
I said, wow.
Oh, I doubt wow will come out, but
No, just this whole
no,
thing.
I know what you're talking about. But let's say I want to find a test on empathy. So I type the word empathy in there, hit return, and let's see. 4 things came out. There's a balanced emotional empathy scale. There's a diplomacy test of empathy, an empathy test, and the LaMonica empathy profile. So I could look at these and see if it's kind of what I want. This says it just measures an individual's vicarious emotional response to perceived emotional experiences of others.
Do you have to pay for them?
Depends. It depends. Sometimes the original author may have published something and just ask permission to use it, and they'll give it to you for free. Others you do have to pay. So here's who you would contact, right, to try to figure out if you're going to pay, if it's free.
In our scenario, we could use this for our research to find out what scale we would use.
If you wanted to use a scale, instead of creating one,
Right.
you can find one, sure. Yeah. So, if there's anything in
So when you, I just want to know real quick, if you wanted to buy one of those, and since it's for $15, can you just buy one and photocopy it, or is that illegal?
Yeah, they won't let you do that. Unless you get permission directly from the author, get it in writing. Get it in writing. Yeah, but most, sometimes, if you say, I'm a starving graduate student,
Oh.
could I please, would you cut me a deal? Sometimes if the person who created the test is the person in charge of the test, it's not being published by an organization, sometimes they'll just say, go ahead and use it for free. I used a scale, it's a Surgeon scale, and I got to use it for free. Yeah. So it doesn't hurt to ask. So chocolate doesn't show up. Since if it already exists, why reinvent the wheel? And if it's pretty good, you look it up and it has pretty good validity, reliability. Good, use it. So that's one way to find it. That's the best way to find tests. The next best way, I guess, is just type into the search engine up here in Google and just go like empathy scale and see what happens. And you might have to wade through a bunch of junk to see if there's actually a scale. There's the emotional empathy scale. So you go there.
They give permission.
And they might give and sometimes you can actually just for a small fee just take it online. So that might be an easy way to collect the data.
Having everybody come in.
Just come and take it online, and they print out a copy and they give it to you. Type of thing.
So, meta mood is what you think about your mood?
Let me think about that one. I might not be in the right mood to answer that.
Yeah.
That's what you got it for right
What do you
here,
think
right?
about that?
Obtaining the state meta mood experience scale. Let's see what it does it say. Is a scale of meta experience developed independently. Okay. A lot of mumbo jumbo though, right? Thinking about mood. Okay. They actually even have a test here. Okay.
See? Can you print that out?
Well, it depends on what basically what it says, but if it looks like it doesn't have doesn't give you any directions about how to use it.
Yeah,
Like
I
you
don't
can't
see,
use it.
you count up all the numbers and then so what?
Yeah, it doesn't give you kind of a scale to interpret it, does it? It just gives you the questions. So they get you one way of coming or going, right? All right. Anyway, but if you wanted to read more about it, there's where you would go.
Little dated.
So anyway, the empathy scale. Let's see what that one says. Ooh, report of the scale. Ooh, they're actually going to give us an actual report of the scale. Oh, well, there's a paper. A measure of emotional empathy for adolescents and adults. So they actually give you the paper.
Yes, probably reliability and validity data.
Yeah, look. Oh, it's an older version though. Oh, no, it's an underline. It's not bolded. I get a little credit off there. Okay, now I get, see, and look, empathy is over here. It should be over here in all capital letters. Oop.
But is that the older version?
That's the older version.
Okay.
That's old. No, they gotta be new.
Like we didn't write it this year.
No, I know it's true. It was 1999, so it definitely was an older version. But they give you the whole article. That's cool. So you can learn more about the scale.
And how it's graded.
No, it doesn't look like it has anything about that part.
Yeah, sure.
Darn it. So you gotta get more info. There's some data. That's the data. Okay. I'm just going forward to see if the questions are actually Oh, there they are. There they are. The question. I cry easily when watching a sad movie. Okay. Certain pieces of music can really move me. Seeing a herd animal by the side of the road is very upsetting. Well, this all makes sense, doesn't it? They seem to fit.
I've been single-handed in the class.
I feel other people's pain. Oh, okay. Oh, here we go.
See?
Oh, there we go. Down here, they tell you what. Yeah. Okay.
There's been this coyote wandering around campus with a hurt leg.
What kind of?
I saw it.
Feel bad for that little guy.
No way. Oh, you're taking him out.
Don't take him out.
Oh,
No. No, you let the other nature run its course.
I feel bad for that coyote. At the same time, I think about all the rabbits probably. You know, it's all confusing to me.
where'd you go?
It's the campus coyote.
Oh, man.
Waters everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
For example, let's look at the first one. What explains conscientiousness? First of all, let's define what's conscientiousness. It's kind of hard one, isn't it? What is conscientious? Conscientious
To be aware of.
Being
Yeah.
conscious of where you
Okay.
don't use the same.
Oh, yeah. You guys are thinking conscious to be aware, but conscientiousness is doing the right thing, right? Being conscientious, I'm doing the right thing, right? Consciousness is I'm just aware, right? But conscientious, do the right thing. There are people who are very conscientious. They're at work on time, and they get the work assigned to them done. And they're conscientious about it, right?
But are they conscientious for because they're scared of what can happen to them if they're not?
Okay, that could be something that
Nerves.
explains conscientiousness. So we have like a circle. Sometimes we kind of look at this way. Conscientiousness. That's all right. Oh, we did. Conscientious.
Science.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And so we say, okay, heart, what explains it? Anxiety.
Yeah.
Some people are they're conscientious, so they don't go through stoplights because they're afraid of
Getting
being
hit.
getting hit or they're afraid of being caught by the police.
Yeah.
So they're conscientious kind of by default.
Right. Or they're nice to other people because they're afraid of going to hell.
Yeah. What else makes people conscientious?
They want to look in the mirror,
All right.
look at themselves in the mirror.
Self-esteem, being able to hold your head up high.
Can't be ashamed of yourself.
Maybe another part is because that's what God wants.
Religion.
But that's how they were raised.
How you were raised. Or could it be maybe there's some genetic component? I don't know.
That's actually interesting.
That might be interesting.
There's a
Is there a genetic component
that
to
makes-
conscientiousness?
Yeah.
Maybe. How would you go about figuring that out if you were actually doing a study? If there's a genetic component to conscientiousness?
If you're born with some kind of a frontal lobe, is that possible?
If we've identified the source of in the brain of conscientiousness, the region of it, if we can kind of see differences between people who are conscientious and who have a lack of moral.
Oh, you could do like a
the
EEG
MRI.
or MRI.
Yeah, you can. These advanced analyses of the brain, you might be able to compare. Or you could give a scale to somebody that measures conscientiousness, and then give the same scale to the parents. And then compare conscientious
Wouldn't that be
people
raised,
to
not genetic?
non-conscientious people in their groups. And if you see a significant difference between the two groups, maybe there's a genetic component.
Just a side question. Has there ever been anybody born with a deficiency in the brain in certain, like in one certain area?
Yeah, there are certain people who gravitate very easily to antisocial personality disorder. And one of the theories there is that they are born with lower than normal levels of serotonin.
Okay.
And like for me, and I've said this before in this country, you let me walk into an antique shop, I'm happy. There are some people who cannot feel anything unless they're doing something edgy. Jumping out of airplanes, like I said before, or mutilating animals, killing. You hear people, sometimes they're being asked, why did you kill so-and-so? I just wanted to know what it would feel like.
What about being like a pyro?
Starting fires, yeah. Or people who have Munchausen by proxy, who suffocate, like for example, suffocate an infant while the infant's in the hospital, and then yell for a nurse, and then they just save the kid.
Mm-hmm.
They got the attention of saving the kid because they were there when it stopped breathing. What you didn't know is that they made the kid stop breathing.
I saw a video of some lady. Strange.
That's it was figured out years ago by an astute doctor who noticed that the kid, or the infant, I can't remember if it was a small child or an infant, noticed that the kid would only have problems when her mom was visiting. And so the doctor got permission to put a video camera in the room. That was pretty significant to do. And then they saw the mother put the pillow up, smother the kid, wait till it stopped breathing, and could run out and get a nurse or doctor. And it was like, oh man, good thing you were here. Jealous, affirmation, and validation.
Good thing we were here.
Yeah, good thing you were here. But it happened so many times. When doctor got suspicious, got permission, and figured it out. And now we know it has a label.
Because it happens that often.
It happens enough. And
do they suffocate other people's kids? Or is it just
usually it's just going to be the ones that they have control over, right?
Okay.
And sometimes they'll do things like inject urine into somebody to make them sick. Actually make them quite sick so that they can get the attention of the medical profession. Like that. So it's okay. I mean, a lot of sick people out there. And people start fires some firemen start fires, because now they rush to the fire and they're like heroes.
You can stand by and watch the firefighters.
Yeah.
So
Sometimes it
firemen start fires.
Sometimes firemen.
Is it so they can get paid? Like, do they get more paid?
It's more about
That's what
rushing to the fire and being part of saving the land and the attention and the news coverage and all that stuff. So it's very similar in my mind. I think it actually fits Munchausen. Instead of doing it to a human being, we're doing it to property or objects. Okay, one way to do this research is start with a good question. Try to figure out what could explain that. Look at those two variables, see if it's been done. If it's been done, see if you could do it a little bit differently. That could be one way to do research. Here are some topics. Sometimes you can just take a couple topics and put them together. So for the administrators in the room, I kind of came up with a list of administration issues, right? Leadership styles, time management, ineffective. What do you do with an ineffective worker? Right? Conflict resolution, climate, morale, hiring, firing, mission, vision, student performance, budgetary stressors, teacher evaluations, ethical, moral conflicts. Came up with that list, and I thought about teaching. Maybe they might be focused on learning, attention, multiple intelligence, social intelligence, leadership support or non-support, right? Teachers get frustrated when they don't have the support of their leaders, their administration, right? Or they feel you're
So
good.
how are you going to do that in a research?
You gotta
That
be
sounds
creative.
political.
Yeah, you gotta be creative. Maybe some deceit has been in there. And maybe you don't use your own school. Multitasking, class size, current conflicts, personal sharing, caring, touching, multicultural sensitivity, counseling, personal counseling, abuse, substance abuse, personal health, cognitive differences, effective counseling skills, personality disorders, countertransferences, storytelling, analogies, lit life story intakes, pets.
Did you just put that there?
Okay, so maybe you want to just look at two things, and you might just link two things together. Substance abuse and leadership style. There you go. Maybe there's a relationship between the two. You could go like this.
Yeah, I like that.
There's my two variables. Go look at that. And just come up with a couple lists. Go boom, boom, and
Boom.
there you go. So either ask a question, try to find out a logical answer, see if it's been done. If it's been done, find a different twist. Or just come up with a list and see what looks like an interesting combination to see if there's a relationship between those two things. Does that make sense?
Oh, I have one. Thank you so much.
Do you have one that
Jesus. So
and then you go to Google, and then you go to Google and you type it in. So I was even thinking of, let's see, I go to Google Research or Google Scholar, and I was wondering, was there a relationship between handedness and intelligence? Ooh, look at that. Handedness and intelligence.
1978.
That's older, so let's go newer. 2008. Ooh, handedness and intellectual achievement. You can handle it. So maybe it's been done too much, you know. So maybe, but has handedness and empathy been it? So you just kind of play around with things, and you maybe you find an article that captures your attention, you start reading it, and that leads you to another idea. You know? 'Cause I found this article. What was it called? What does left hand know that right hand doesn't? Okay, we have a few presidents who are left-handed. We know 10% of the population is left-handed. I'm left-handed. There's Gerald Ford, Ronald Reagan, George Bush, Bill Clinton, and Obama. Julius Caesar, Michelangelo, Mark Twain, Paul McCartney, Oprah Winfrey. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Oprah Winfrey. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Ginsburg. But they're talking about intelligence, and in some articles you find a link between it, and others you don't. It's inverse. They talk about all sorts of things. That there's maybe more association with schizophrenia, with left-handers, and that sort of thing. So they talk about all sorts of things. So you might find an article like this, and then you start thinking, oh, maybe, and we talk about PTSD, maybe I'll look at handedness and empathy or something. You know, you just kind of you find an article and it leads you into a different direction. Anyway, I hope that helps. So I guess we use the rest of the time, or whatever time you want left, to go over your ideas or to hammer them out, or if you just want to go home and hammer them out.